The Christmas tree shimmered with soft golden lights, its branches laden with delicate glass ornaments, and a star perched precariously at the top. The scent of pine mingled with cinnamon from a tray of cookies cooling on the counter. The scene was warm and picturesque, but the tension in the room was anything but. I stood in the doorway of the living room, watching my parents and my sister Mia chatting by the fireplace. My arms crossed tightly over my chest, a habit I couldn't shake when I felt out of place, something I felt often in this house. Mia was always at the center, her laughter effortlessly filling the space as she leaned closer to Mom, her golden hair catching the firelight. At 30, she was everything I wasn't: confident, successful, the embodiment of what my parents seemed to value most. I had spent 26 years living in her shadow, the quiet one, the afterthought. Can you believe it? Mia's voice carried across the room. I got the bonus just in time to cover the mortgage payments for Mom and Dad. It's really no big deal. She waved a hand modestly, as if this wasn't the kind of thing that would have her enshrined as the family hero. That's wonderful, Mia, Mom said, her tone dripping with pride. I don't know what we'd do without you. I shifted my weight uncomfortably. Earlier this year, I'd taken on extra freelance projects to help them cover their roof repair. It wasn't a big deal, it wasn't even a lot of money, but I didn't expect it to be erased from memory. Well, it's not just Mia who's been helping, I said, my voice small but steady. I helped out with the roof, remember? A beat of silence followed, then Dad turned toward me with a furrowed brow. Ava, you didn't have to mention that. It's not a competition. I started to say, but Mia cut in with her signature laugh, one that somehow felt dismissive. It's okay, Ava. I think everyone knows I'm not doing it for recognition. I felt my cheeks burn, the sting of humiliation sharp. Dinner was going to be awkward now, I could feel it in the thick, suffocating air. The warmth of the room didn't reach me as I stood frozen, my fingers itching to escape to my old room upstairs. Christmas was supposed to be a time of joy, togetherness, family. Instead, it was just another stage for me to feel unseen. I wasn't trying to take credit for anything, I said, my voice trembling as I pushed my chair back from the table. Dinner sat untouched on my plate, the smell of rosemary and garlic chicken suddenly nauseating. I was just saying I helped. That's all. You don't need to be defensive, Ava, Mom said, cutting into her chicken with meticulous precision. Her tone was calm, the kind that cloaked something more cutting. No one's accusing you of anything. Except they were, and we all knew it. Mom, Dad, let's not make a big deal out of this, Mia said, her signature smile ever present. Ava's sensitive, and she probably just forgot how these things work. Forgot how these things work? The words hung in the air like a slap. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, nah, my cousin who always had a knack for saying what I couldn't, chimed in. Wait a second, Na said, setting down her wineglass. Mia, what exactly did you pay for again? The mortgage and the roof? Mia tilted her head and gave a practice laugh. Of course, Na. I've got the receipts to prove it. Let's see them, Na said, leaning forward, her tone light but challenging. Mia didn't even flinch. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded stack of papers, sliding them across the table toward Na. I watched as Na scanned the receipts, her brows knitting together before she finally sat back. Well, looks like she's got them, Na said reluctantly, though there was something unreadable in her expression. Guess that settles it. It was like watching my last defense crumble to dust. I told you, Mia said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But no hard feelings, Ava. I know you mean well. I reached for my phone, desperate to prove my own contributions. My hands shook as I opened my banking app, only to be greeted by a spinning wheel and a message, unable to connect to server. Seriously? I muttered under my breath, hitting refresh over and over. What's wrong now? Dad asked, his voice tinged with irritation. My app's not working, I said, my throat tightening as I held back tears. Well, that's convenient, Mia said, the edges of her words sharp. I stood abruptly, the scrape of my chair loud against the hardwood floor. You know what? Never mind. I don't need to prove anything. But I did. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair and stormed toward the door, my vision blurred. Behind me, I heard Na call out, "Ava, wait." Outside, the cold night air hit me like a wall, sharp and biting against my skin. I walked down the snow-dusted driveway, my breath coming out in visible puffs. I wasn't sure where I was going until Na appeared beside me, her boots crunching in the snow. "Hey," she said softly, falling into step with me. "I can't do it anymore, Na," I said, my voice breaking. "I can't keep playing this game where Mia's perfect, and I'm the one who's always wrong." Na didn't say anything for a long moment. Finally, she sighed. "Look, Ava, I know Mia's got a way of making things look good on paper. But you and I both know she's not always what she seems. Then why didn't you call her out back there?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Because, Ava," she said, hesitating. "You saw the receipts. And I wasn't about to get dragged into something without all the facts." I stopped walking, turning to face her. "So, you're not taking sides?" "I'm on your side," she said firmly. "But this isn't something I can fix for you. You're going to have to figure out how to stand your ground." I looked at her, my breath visible in the frigid air. "I don't even know where to start." Na placed a hand on my shoulder, her expression softer now. "You start by not letting them win. By not letting them make you feel small." I nodded, the lump in my throat too big to speak. For now, standing in the cold with Na felt like the closest thing to warmth I'd find tonight. The house was still and warm, the soft hum of Christmas music playing in the background as I stood in the hallway, clutching my phone like a lifeline. My heart pounded in my chest, not from fear, but from the quiet resolve that had replaced my earlier humiliation. After leaving Na last night, I'd stayed up until the early hours, sifting through emails and digging for every piece of evidence I could find. It had taken time, but I finally unearthed what I needed: confirmation emails from my bank, showing the exact deposits I'd made to help cover the roof repair. The dates and amounts were clear and undeniable. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself before stepping into the dining room. The smell of roasted turkey and spiced cider filled the air, the clatter of silverware and the low murmur of conversation briefly halting as I entered. All eyes turned toward me, Mia's confident smirk, Mom's wary glance, Dad's furrowed brow. I cleared my throat, my voice steady but firm. "I'd like to say something." "Ava," Mia said sweetly, leaning back in her chair with a look of feigned concern. "I thought you might not come back after yesterday. We were just talking about how sensitive you can be." "Mia," I said, meeting her gaze directly, "you've had your turn to talk. Now it's mine." The room went silent, the weight of my words cutting through the air. "I spent most of last night thinking about what happened," I began, my voice calm but carrying a steel edge. "And I realized I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. But then I thought maybe I do. Maybe I need to prove something to myself." I pulled out my phone, unlocking the screen and scrolling to the email folder I'd bookmarked. "You said you covered the roof repair. You said you had the receipts." "Well, so do I." Mia's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "Ava, no one's saying you didn't help in your own way, but—" "Stop." My voice cut through her words, sharper than I intended but effective. I turned the screen toward Mom and Dad, the email with the bank transaction bold and unmistakable. "This is the deposit I made in February. And this," I swiped to the next, "is the one from June. Both of them went toward the roof repair, and I have the emails to prove it." Mom leaned forward, squinting at the screen, while Dad adjusted his glasses. "That can't be right," Mia said, her voice higher now, the confidence cracking. "I mean, I don't know what you're trying to pull, Ava, but—" "I'm not pulling anything, Mia," I said, my voice rising. "I'm showing them the truth. Something you've been twisting for years to make yourself look good." "Girls," Dad said, his tone placating, "let's not do this right now." "Why not?" I said, my eyes flashing. "We're already here, aren't we? Why not have an honest conversation for once?" Mia shot out of her chair, her carefully curated mask slipping into something sharper and more desperate. "You've always been jealous, Ava. Always trying to steal the spotlight, always trying to make me look bad." "Jealous?" I interrupted, laughing bitterly. "Mia, I don't want your spotlight. I've never wanted it. But I'm done letting you rewrite the narrative. I turned to Mom and Dad, who sat frozen, their expressions a mix of confusion and guilt. You've always believed her because she makes it easy to believe her. But the truth doesn't change just because it's quieter. The silence that followed was deafening. Mia's face had gone pale, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Finally, Na, who had been watching quietly from the corner, broke the tension. She's right, she said, her voice cutting through the quiet. Ava's right. I exhaled, the weight I'd been carrying for years lifting slightly. For the first time, I felt seen, not just by Na, but by the parents who had so often overlooked me. As I took my seat at the table, I noticed Mia retreating into silence, her shoulders stiff and her expression unreadable. Christmas dinner resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. This time, the spotlight didn't belong to Mia. It wasn't mine either. It just was. And for the first time, that felt like enough. The frigid night air bit at my cheeks as I stood outside the ATM, flanked by my parents. Mia stood on the other side of Mom, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her lips pursed in defiance. Na had insisted on coming too, standing a few feet back, her hands buried in her coat pockets as she watched the scene unfold. Dad inserted the bank card and punched in the PIN, his face unreadable. The machine whirred for a moment before displaying the transaction history. My heart pounded as he scrolled through the records, his eyes scanning each line. There, I said, stepping closer and pointing at the screen. The dates and amounts matched perfectly with the emails I'd shown earlier. That's my deposit. Dad stared at the screen for a long moment, then turned to Mia. Mia, he said quietly, his voice tinged with disbelief, you told us you covered these expenses. These records say otherwise. Mia scoffed, her mask of composure cracking. So what? Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I got confused. Confused? Mom cut in, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. Mia, you handed us receipts. You said you did this. How could you be confused about something like that? Mia's cheeks flushed a deep red. Fine, she snapped, her voice rising. I didn't do it, okay? But does it even matter? You always believe me anyway. You always want to believe me. Her words hung in the air, thick and heavy, like the snowflakes beginning to fall around us. It matters, Mia, Dad said, his voice strained. It matters because we trusted you. We trusted what you said. And you lied. Mia's defiance faltered, her shoulders slumping slightly. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal. Ava's always been fine with staying in the background. I didn't think she'd actually care. I stepped forward, my voice trembling but strong. Of course I care, Mia. This isn't about the money. It's about how you've treated me. How you've always treated me. Like I don't matter. Like my efforts don't count because I'm not you. Mia looked away, her jaw tightening. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, but instead, she crossed her arms tighter around herself. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she mumbled, her voice barely audible. But you did, Mom said, her voice soft but firm. You hurt your sister. You made her feel invisible in her own family. The drive back to the house was silent, the tension so thick it felt suffocating. Inside, the house was still warm and glowing with Christmas lights, but the festive atmosphere was gone. As we sat in the living room, Mia finally broke the silence. I'm sorry, she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. I didn't think it through. I'm used to you guys seeing me a certain way. And I didn't want that to change. Maybe it's time it does, Na said from her spot on the armchair. Maybe it's time we all start seeing things as they really are. I didn't know what to say. The apology felt hollow, but it was a start, a crack in the armor Mia had worn for so long. For the first time, I saw something vulnerable in her, something uncertain. For years, I had fought to be seen. And now, for the first time, it felt like my family was finally starting to look. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the house as Mia walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the stone steps before fading into the quiet night. None of us spoke as the realization of her absence settled in. I sat on the couch, my hands folded tightly in my lap, staring at the glowing embers in the fireplace. My parents sat opposite me, their faces pale and drawn, the weight of the evening clearly pressing down on them. "I didn't think she'd actually leave," Mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She'll be back," Dad said gruffly, though he didn't sound convinced. I didn't care whether Mia came back tonight or not. For once, this wasn't about her. Mom leaned forward, wringing her hands nervously. "Ava," she began, her voice trembling, "we owe you an apology. A real one." I looked up at her, my heart a mix of hope and guarded skepticism. "For years," she continued, we've treated you unfairly. I see that now. We believed Mia because it was easy. Because she made it easy to believe her. But that doesn't excuse it. It doesn't excuse how we made you feel like you were less important." Dad nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how we let it go on for so long, Ava. We're sorry. Truly. You deserved better from us." The sincerity in their eyes cut through me like a blade. I wanted to accept their words, to believe that this was the beginning of something new, something better. But years of resentment weren't so easily undone. "Thank you," I said finally, my voice quiet but steady. "I appreciate the apology. I do. But you have to understand, this doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase all the times I felt invisible or dismissed." Mom reached for my hand, her touch tentative. "I know. And we don't expect it to. But we want to start making it right, however long it takes." Her words hung in the air, a fragile offering. I wanted to believe her, to trust that things could change. But trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. "I'll try," I said, pulling my hand away gently. "But it's going to take time." Dad nodded, his expression heavy with guilt. "We'll do whatever it takes, Ava. We promise." The crackling of the fire filled the silence, the warmth from the flames doing little to soften the tension that still lingered. I looked at them both, seeing them clearly for the first time, not as the parents I'd spent my life trying to please, but as flawed, imperfect people who had made mistakes. It was a small step, but it was a step forward. And for now, that was enough. The house was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the Christmas tree lights and the soft ticking of the clock on the mantel. The fire had died down to glowing embers, but I didn't feel cold anymore. I sat alone in the living room, my parents having retreated upstairs after their apology. The air felt lighter, but the weight of the years still lingered. Nari appeared from the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea, her presence a quiet comfort. She handed me one before settling into the armchair across from me. "Well," she said, blowing on her tea, "that was something." I let out a small laugh, the first genuine one of the night. "Yeah, something." Na studied me for a moment, her expression softening. "How do you feel?" I sipped my tea, the warmth soothing my throat as I considered the question. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me feels relieved. Like maybe things can change." But another part of me, I trailed off, staring into the flickering embers. "Still hurts," Na finished for me. I nodded. "Yeah, it still hurts. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon." Na leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "It doesn't have to. Healing takes time, Ava. You don't have to rush it." Her words settled over me like a blanket, comforting and grounding. For years, I'd carried the weight of being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. I had buried my feelings, convinced myself that they didn't matter, that I didn't matter. But tonight had changed something. "I spent so much time trying to prove myself," I said quietly. "Trying to make them see me. And now that they finally do, I don't know what to do with it." "You don't have to do anything with it," Na said. "You just keep being you. Strong, resilient, capable. Let them come to terms with who you are on your terms, not theirs." I looked at her, a small smile playing at my lips. "When did you get so wise?" She grinned. "Always have been. You're just now noticing." We sat in companionable silence for a while, the warmth of the tea and Na's presence a balm for the rawness of the evening. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. My parents' apology was a step, but it was only the beginning. Trust and healing would take time, and I wasn't sure Mia would ever truly understand the damage she'd caused. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. I had stood up for myself, revealed the truth, and faced the pain head-on. I had found my voice, and I wasn't about to lose it again. And maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would mark the start of something new, not just for my family, but for me. Resilience had carried me through years of being overlooked, and it would carry me through this too. Healing wasn't a straight path, but I was ready to walk it, one step at a time. As the clock struck midnight, I set my empty mug on the coffee table and leaned back into the cushions. The glow of the Christmas tree cast a soft light over the room, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace.